Hello friends, welcome back. Today's video has to do with signs of coercion in relationships. I want to talk about what they look like, how they might be showing up in different relationships, and even more importantly, I want to talk about what might make someone susceptible to fall into a relationship and to be experiencing this coercion in their lives. And so that's kind of the piece where narcissistic abuse meets complex PTSD recovery. Okay, so if you want to understand why you wind up falling for that kind of coercive control, definitely watch until the end of this video because I'm going to give you some tips. That being said, for those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet live on Zoom weekly and we work through the side effects of complex PTSD and narcissistic abuse together. The doors are open. They're open for a short period of time. They're open until the 5th of February. So if you want to join us for the month, make sure you check out the link there. Okay. So let's talk about coercion, signs of coercive control in relationships. And first, what coercion is. Coercion is basically when somebody causes you to change who you are, to change how you feel, to change your thoughts, to change you into acting or being or conforming because there's some kind of a threat behind it. Now, I'm going to be dead honest. If you're with an overt narcissist or somebody that is obviously abusive, then it can be easy to spot coercion. And it can be easy to spot coercive abuse. But this video, really, I want to talk about what it looks like if you're dealing with covert abusers, where it's not so easy. Because this threat that motivates you into changing may not be a physical threat. And that's the confusing part. I've had clients tell me that they felt impelled to do things. They felt impelled to give up passions, to stop doing things they loved, to do things that weren't their favorite thing because they were scared. Here's the threat. And when we would analyze it, like, what are you scared of? Like, what will happen if you do this? Do you know what the number one answer was in most cases? And again, I'm not talking about if you're in a relationship with somebody that is a physical abuser. Okay, I'm talking about somebody that is a covert emotional abuser. Not that that's any less painful or, not that that's any less damaging. But there are different signs between these two. So I want to kind of distinguish that. The number one thing they were afraid of. Pause this video. Let me know what you think. If you think about it, if you feel like you've been in a relationship where you felt coercively controlled to do things or stop doing things because of something. Let me know what it was in the comment section below, and then come back to this video and I'll tell you what the number one thing that I find with my face-to-face clients. Okay, so the number one thing that people are afraid of, the threat behind what causes a survivor of emotional trauma to change who they are, is they're afraid of the toxic person, the malignant narcissist. They're afraid of them getting angry. They're afraid of the anger. And when I ask, okay, well, when this person gets angry, then what happens? Well, that anger is associated with the emotional punishments that tend to come along with covert abuse, the silent treatment, blame shifting, double bind manipulations, gaslighting, invalidation. They're afraid of all of that. Okay. So first thing established is if you are afraid, if you find yourself doing things, or more importantly, you've stopped doing things you love because it makes someone else mad, that is a huge, huge red flag of coercive abuse. That alone. That wasn't even one of the three things I was going to mention, but that is a huge sign. Okay. That being said, let's go into those 3 things that I had in mind to share with you. Okay, these are things that if you are in a relationship with somebody that's using covert coercion, this is what you'll find in the relationship. So number 1 is a monitoring of everything about you, who you're with, what you eat, what you wear, and more importantly, your personality. Okay, now with this one, the person may not monitor all of those things. Okay, this is where we just have to start kind of viewing the information and looking at the pieces that fit, because nobody, will do it 100% the same. So with all of those monitoring things, to me, one of the most common that stands out is your personality. Okay, so what will happen if you're with somebody that is a covert coercive abuser? You'll start finding yourself, maybe little by little, it may not always be drastic, but you'll find yourself changing personalities. Maybe you are more quiet than you used to be. You may not even know why. And this is the hard part when it comes to coercive abuse, is that the way you start changing is slow and subtle. So for example, what will happen is, let's say every time you're out with people and you're out with friends and you're super outgoing and you're super happy and you're passionate and you're just bubbly, right? And you're feeling good. A covert narcissist feels threatened by that. Sounds crazy, but it's true. They view you, if you're happy, then they're stuck seeing what they are, and which is full of shame and self-hate, believe it or not. So they'll see that and they'll feel less than, and they'll do something so that it kind of pops your happy bubble, so to speak. Maybe they'll say something, a backhanded compliment, and you'll just kind of lose your emotion for that moment. And you're wondering, what just happened? Like, why are they mad at me? You start thinking, like, what did I do wrong? And later, when you're away from people, you'll probably wind up getting gaslit, where they'll say, oh, no, I wasn't saying it like that. You're taking that out of context. I wasn't meaning it like that. You're making it bigger than it was. And now you're a little confused. The next time you go out and you're around people and you're happy, right? And this time, maybe the person just shoots you a look of contempt. And it causes you to kind of, ask yourself, like, what just happened? Like, am I doing something wrong? And when those can be subtle things. And again, if you say, no, why did you look at me like that? I thought you were mad. And then you get gaslit again, you start doubting your perception. But what will happen is, without realizing it, your subconscious is forming a belief, because our subconscious gets trained through repetition plus emotion. So if you are repeatedly met with something negative, when you are happy and bubbly, your subconscious is like, oh, this is bad. Like, we don't want to do this. And it starts causing you to tone yourself down. Okay. And when we're toning ourselves down, we are changing our personality because it somehow is making somebody else upset. Okay, so that's one way. If somebody is monitoring your phone calls, monitoring, your friends, monitoring how you spend your time, right? Maybe every time you're reading a book and you're just relaxing, same thing. If every time you're doing that, it's met with something negative, where the other person fights or shames you or indirectly makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, and you stop doing whatever it was that felt good, that was your passion, you are being coercively controlled. The second way you can spot coercion in relationships is through financial manipulation or financial control. So recently I did a reaction video, or I did a video response, I should say, to somebody that sent an email to me, which, by the way, if you want to receive a video response, send me an email to nar.coaching, share a little bit of your story with me, and I will respond through a video anonymously. But anyway, in that recent video response, which you can watch here, by the way, she mentioned that in the relationship with her older brother, she wasn't allowed to get a job. And it was very much discouraged for her to start going after her dreams, her passions, and to start creating her life. And I'm pointing this one out again because, again, when it comes to covert coercion, it's not always obvious that they're trying to hurt you. Sometimes they'll say, no, don't do that because I'm taking care of you, because, look at all I've done for you and now you don't appreciate it and you're just going to leave. And they make you feel guilt for wanting to create your life. And that's covert coercion. Okay, they're controlling. If somebody is controlling your finances or discouraging you from having finances and making you completely dependent on them, then you have to be careful with that. And the funny thing is, when it comes to financial abuse, not only is it them not letting you have money, but you could be the breadwinner. You could actually be the one that makes the money, and somehow they'll find a way to make you feel guilty anytime you spend your own money, but they can do whatever they want. So you really have to watch for that one. And again, I'm going to talk about why people get susceptible to these in a few minutes. So make sure you stay till the end. And the third way that you can spot covert coercion in relationships is through somebody putting you down, chipping away at your self-esteem. And if it's done overtly, it's obvious, right? But if it's done covertly, they can act as if they're trying to help you. They're just telling you all these things about you that are so horrible and bad because they care. So they can do it in a way that can be confusing. It causes cognitive dissonance. And if you haven't seen my latest video on cognitive dissonance, you're definitely going to want to check that out. Okay, so the reason that they chip at your self-esteem, and the reason a covert person would do it in this way, is because if your self-esteem is broken and you don't have trust in self, then you're easier to control. That's the sad bottom line. Okay, if you are having or experiencing any of these and you're struggling and you don't know what to do, first, I just want to let you know that I put in the description box below some phone numbers and some hotlines for anyone that doesn't have the means to get help financially. There are people that you can speak to that can help you to get grounded. And I just wanted to make that resource available. The phone numbers are there in the description box below. And the first thing that is important is to own and recognize what is going on in your relationship. Like, you can't change anything until you first acknowledge and see what is exactly happening. So I just encourage you, if you're watching this video, that means you're wondering, you're worried that this might be taking place. And I just want to encourage you to trust your gut. And that leads me into the next part, where we're going to talk about what makes people susceptible specifically to these three forms of coercive abuse. The first one being that you start abandoning your identity and taking on an identity that is dictated to you by the coercive person. This really comes from childhood trauma. For whatever reason, if in childhood you were never safe to be you, right? If you had a caregiver that shamed you for being you, and you were always trying to find the secret formula to make that caregiver happy, and you were used to sacrificing self so that your caregiver didn't get angry, then when you're in these relationships, it can feel normal. Even though on a conscious level and on a logical level, you don't want to engage in these behaviors. You want to stay true to yourself, right? But if you have childhood trauma and it's unhealed, those unconscious beliefs will show up in a relationship. And so what will happen is you're in this relationship and the person shows a tiny bit of disapproval with your personality, right? That happiness, you're happy, and they're just kind of a little bit put off. And what happens inside, okay, on a conscious level, your logical mind might be like, well, that's messed up. Like, he doesn't like me for me, or she doesn't like me for me. Well, too bad. I like me. However, if you still have the wounds in childhood or from childhood, that when you were being you and you were rejected by a caregiver, that is a deep, intense abandonment wound that is still part of your unconscious beliefs. And when something similar in a relationship comes up, it kicks on that belief that I'm going to be abandoned. And if I'm abandoned, my survival is on the line, because in childhood, it was. And you start waking up in this relationship almost like feeling this need for this person to reciprocate. And now we're going into like limerence. And what's happening is your old wound is showing up in this relationship. In a way, the way the brain works when it comes to trauma, in a way, is really awesome, because anything that is unhealed and unprocessed, your brain uses current circumstances to show you what you need to work on. However, if you don't understand that, your subconscious belief is going to have way more power than your logical mind. And it's going to cause you to stay in a relationship because that old wound is kicking on. It's repetition compulsion. And until that wound and the beliefs associated with that wound are healed, you can run the risk of falling for that kind of coercion again. And it's the same thing with financial abuse. If somebody is controlling your finances, even if you didn't have somebody in childhood controlling your finances, it still goes back to our subconscious beliefs from childhood. So let's say you were constantly made to feel bad. Like everything you did, you were bad. So there's a shame wound there, right? I'm bad. Well, when you do something that makes somebody upset, even if your logical mind is like, I did nothing wrong, like that's crazy that you're upset about that. That old shame wound, if we don't understand the complex PTSD recovery part, and we don't understand how to work through the childhood trauma, that wound gets kicked on and it causes you, your unconscious, your subconscious beliefs cause you to do anything so that that person doesn't see you as bad. The problem is that you're coming at it with a person that thinks normal is bad, and it just gets really, warped and messed up inside of you when you're trying to please somebody who doesn't operate by healthy standards. And the third thing, when somebody is chipping away at your self-esteem, that what makes somebody susceptible to that is cognitive dissonance. Okay, that's when they love me, they're saying this because they care, but this is painful. Cognitive dissonance is the thoughts that are out of harmony with each other and you're pulled in opposite directions. Okay, when you don't know how to work through cognitive dissonance, it's like your brain gets stuck ping-ponging between these two thoughts, and the way that it tends to resolve the disharmony, the way your brain tends to work through it, oftentimes in toxic relationships, is by denying and deleting. So it'll be like, oh no, that's not so bad what they did. It's just because they care so much. So it's denying the pain that's really going on. It's deleting the bad memories, and it'll focus on this tiny piece. They said they cared. Forget about all these actions that show that they don't care, but they said they cared, and the brain wants to focus on the positive. So those are 3 things that you have to work through in order to not fall into relationships where there is covert coercion. Now, if you've been doing this and struggling for a long time and you just feel like you're learning and learning and learning and you're not getting anywhere, I want to encourage you to check out the Thriver School of Transformation. You can check it out. There's a free trial for 7 days when you join on. You have 7 days for free. If it's not for you, you can cancel and you're not charged at all. But you get 9 to 12 meetings live monthly, and the cost is $79.99. And you meet with an international group of people that are working through these side effects, that are working through the cognitive dissonance, the subconscious beliefs from childhood, so that they can live life not by managing the symptoms of trauma, but finally as the person they really are. So if you need that extra assistance, always know that it is always there. And if you can't join us or it's not for you and you want a response, a video response to something that you feel would be beneficial on your healing journey, make sure you send me an email at nar.coaching@gmail.com.